Hey, has anybody noticed this little guy sitting on top of my computers? It's hard to film. Man, is it rain? Oh, you hear that thunder? It's seriously storming outside. Okay, so what we got going here is a little network monitor. I've got a lot of servers that I have to keep an eye on, and I needed a way to know what was going on with them. So I've got, this is just a some MAX7219 setups, little LED matrices. There's actually 8 of these things that I made this matrix out of, and then an ESP32 back there. So it checks the time. Well, so that's just giving me a time and date. But basically, what it's doing, it's connecting to my Wi-Fi, and then it's checking YouTube. It checks all the different servers. It just tries to ping them and get a 200 response back from them, right? And so, well, this is actually showing me I connect to the YouTube API. It's giving me my views. So it just went up 124. It's up 1,000 since the last. Okay, so now it's going through checks, checking YouTube, check time, check YouTube, checking a bunch of different servers. Some of them, these take a little longer because they're HTTPS servers. So going through its checks. Okay, everything was good. So it just goes back to its time routine, shows me the time and date, and then it shows me the last thing that happened on YouTube. So let's see. There's my sub count. Oh, it went down 1. And here's my view count. Last time it checked, it went up 124, or last time it changed. And then that's for today. That's how many it's gone up. So it just goes through this routine, and then it has a speaker on it right here, or a little beeper right there. Oops, that's not secure, is it? It has a little beeper right there. So if the YouTube changes, then it beeps. If the servers are down, then one of the servers are down, then it'll buzz a certain noise, and it'll alert me on the screen here and say error, server such and such is not working. So that's about all it does. Stay tuned if you want to see some pictures and video of the making. Okay, as always, I'll include the code in the description. You can find a link to it there. So now let's talk about the build. All right, all of this stuff is really about these things right here. The MAX7219. Okay, and it is an LED controller. So here's the Max right on this board right here, and it will control all 64 of these LEDs on this matrix right there. Okay, so I've put together 8 of these to make 32 by 64 screen for the network monitor. Okay, now you can buy these separately. They're pretty cheap. If you buy them from China, you don't get this expensive well, there's some places that you can buy them from where you don't get this expensive shipping fee. You ought to be able to get them for about $1.50 each. You can get them like that, or you can get them like this, where you've got 4 of them connected together. This is what I did. I bought 2 pieces of these 4 connected together because it was cheaper. If I did it again, I would probably buy the individual ones, because what I found out is that these, when you plug these matrices into the board, they don't fit together very well. So it took a lot of work to get these to fit together tightly, as we'll see later on. So I think I would go with the individual ones. But this is what you end up with. So this is the back of the matrices up here, and then these are the boards. Okay, so you've got 4 places to plug it in, and then here's the back of the board. Now, if you notice right here that you have to solder those on. Okay, and I soldered them on this way so that the cables would run on the inside rather than run on the outside. Okay, the number 1 pin is going to be right there for each of these things. Okay, now these are flipped over and reversed, so the number 1 pin on the back is that one right there. Okay, and then let's move forward and we'll see what they look like on the up close. Okay, here's an up close, and you will see right there that there's a box around that pin, and that'll let you know that it's the number 1 pin. Not all of these are exactly the same, so pay attention when you get it and try it out before you solder everything together. So there's the number 1 pin right there, and then when this thing is flipped around, the number 1 pin is right there. So all of these are the number 1 pins. Now, when you look at one of the matrices, on most of the ones that I've gotten off eBay, this is what you have. There's a vague number right there. That's the part number. Sometimes you can see them, sometimes you can't. It's a vague part number right there. And then right here, there's a bump. And when you're looking at that bump, then the number 1 pin is right there. Okay, so that's how you figure it out. You look for this bump. It's only going to be on one side, and that'll orient you to find the number 1 pin. Okay, here's the back of the matrices, and you'll see they're all lined up. See the bump? Okay, the number 1 pins on these are right here. Okay, so we've got a number 1 pin there, number 1 there, there, and so forth, based on where the bump is. Now, we know that the number 1 pin on this board is here. So this pin will go to there. So the whole thing will have to be flipped over. In this case, these are our number 1 pins on this bottom one. So this will actually go straight up onto there. Okay, so this one would have to be flipped. This bottom one will just go straight up on there. Now the front of these things are very dark, sort of jet black, flat black, and the sides are white. So if there's any misalignment, then you will be able to see the white of the sides. So I've been I just take a permanent marker and draw around on the edges just to darken it up a little bit in case there's a little bit of misalignment. Okay, what I've done here is put some painter's tape down on the table backwards, and then stick all of the matrices down onto the tape, holding them tight together. So you want to watch these edges right here and make sure the edges are tight together, and then make sure all your pins are aligned the same way. So look for those little bumps and make sure they're all aligned the same way, and then stick it down on this tape. And then once it's stuck down, then I started out by putting super glue right here and here and here. Then I did all these corners with super glue. And once I gave that a while to set up, and I knew that it had set up, then I went ahead and I ran all the seams with super glue, and I let it soak down in there. Now you've got tape on the front of it, so if the tape is on very tight, then it will prevent any glue from seeping out on the front side. So you really don't have to worry about any leaks or something like that on the front side. So go ahead and glue that thing up, because you want this thing to be pretty sturdy. You've got to fit those pins, and that's a little bit difficult to do, so you don't want it breaking apart when you try to fit your pins in there. Okay, here's a side view of the board laying on top of the pins where it should be. So we see that here we've got good alignment on this end of that pin. Okay, that's what we're focused on right there. But over here on this other side, this pin is way off of this socket. Okay, and it's just the way that the boards are designed. So you would have to have a big gap between the matrices if you wanted to use this, and that's why I might use the individual ones instead. It just make it easier to align than what we had to go through here. Now, just as an aside, while I had the matrices all glued up like that, I went ahead and got a few pieces of wood and then taped them on here, got everything squared up, and then I just put glue in the corners. Super glue is all I used, and I left that to dry while I was working on the pin fitting. And then later on I cut these off, sanded everything down, and made a little box. Okay, but this was just initially getting the box glued up. So in order to fit the pins together, I needed to spread these boards out a little bit. Now this is the first chip on the board. You can see the input pins right there. Okay, so this is the first chip, and look what they did. Look how they route this clock line. Okay, so it looks like you could split this thing, but the clock line runs right down through the middle of it. So you can't really split it right there. Now this is the middle of the board, and in fact you can split it right here. Why they see the clock line runs this way now, which they could have done on everywhere, but they didn't. But in the middle of the board they did make it where you could split it. Okay, so that's what I did. I split it and spread it out a little bit. Now it wasn't easy to do. The boards, of course, are made out of fiberglass, so you're gonna ruin a little saw doing it. But I went ahead and split them, and then I ran these edges on the sander, kind of smoothed them off. And it's not showing it right here, but it turns out that these edges would hit when you tried to put on the matrices. So what I had to do was sand off some of this edge and sand off some of that edge, and that caused its own problems. I actually damaged part of the board, and I had to put a jumper from here to here on the final board because I damaged this edge right in here. But once I figured that out, it took me a long time to figure out that I damaged it, but once I figured it out and put that jumper in there, then everything started working just fine. Alright, at this stage I've gotten everything together. Still got the tape on it to protect it, but I've got these fitted up real tight right here. They look good. I had to do an extensive amount of trimming of the circuit board so these were cut and put back together. To get everything to line up, and then I had to do a lot of bending of the pins on here to get them to fit into these sockets. But I got everything set up. Everything is tight across the front. Haven't done a reveal yet at this point. Now one thing I did is I damaged somehow in trimming the edge of this board or breaking it here. I damaged the ground, and there was no continuity between here, so I had to add this wire. Now if you want to know how long it took me to figure that one out, a very, very long time. Okay, so anyway, input here goes through to here, down to here, through to there. This is separate because at one point before I discovered this ground continuity problem, I was trying to put a ferrite bead on here to do away with some interference. Anyway, so once I get it into the box, I'll take the tape off. That's where I am. It's all fit up. Got everything working nice and smooth. And so now it's just about getting it into a box and finishing up the software. Okay, I'm about to start putting this thing together. Now, what I've done at this point is just put it into the case. You can see I put some glue just to hold it in place lightly. It could be taken out if I wanted to. And then this is just a piece of printer paper that I glued on the top. The matrices turned out really nice, but putting the paper on there just makes it easier to see the LEDs. So I glued it around the edge. I sprayed a mist of water on it, and that tightened it up on there, and makes it real nice. Okay. Now the buzzer, I put it on these DuPont connectors, and then I split that and put the resistor right there. Okay, so that's what we'll use for the buzzer. And then the ESP20, or this is ESP32. So instead of redoing the case and making it thicker, I just flatten the pins out gently, carefully. I straightened or laid those out that way, and then we'll just we'll put it in here about like that. Okay, and we'll just let it lay in there just like that. So that's kind of where we are. So let me let's hook this thing up. So let's see, this is our ground. Okay, and then the orange is our power. I have the power. Okay, so I'm just hooking it to the USB pin. So that's the 5 volts. And then we've got blue, which is our signal, or the MOSI. That goes on 13. Green is the clock, which goes on 15. Yeah. No, green is the chip select, and then the clock is goes on 14, yellow. Okay, so let's see if this will kind of press. Yeah, that's where we want it, just like about like that. Let's see if we get this. Oh yeah, that ought to sit in there pretty nicely. Alright, so let's see. We're gonna, well, this is the negative. Orange is the negative, right? I know that sounds odd, but so I'm gonna borrow off the negative over here, because remember, everything comes in here, goes over to there, crosses over to there, and ends up right here. So we'll just borrow that negative right there, and then we can lay this thing in here. I'll lay under that ESP32, and then we'll just come around here and hook on to 27. We use 27 for the beeper. Okay, probably this will all sit in here just fine, but once we have this thing all going, then I'll probably do a little tie down, or maybe just put a dab of glue right there to hold that in. I don't know, I might put a zip tie on here too, just to hold everything in place. Okay, so we should be ready to go. Okay, I'm reaching over here and I am plugging it in. go through a test pattern. It must be connecting up. Checking time. Time's good. YouTube is good. Lucky all these other stations are good. And we should go into a display real soon. I got a lot of websites I'm checking. Okay, here comes the time. And what if I turn this light out? You might be able to see it a little better. There's the time and date. Checking YouTube. 33:45 plus 1. That's how many views we got, and it just updated 267 views. Alright, there we go again. Okay, so we're up and running, cooking with gas. Next thing to do is just secure all these things in here the way that we want, and then we'll be good to go. So, all right.